Keeping that momentum going, we now move into a conversation that reflects how leadership itself is evolving in today's fast-moving, digital-driven world. The way leaders operate today looks very different from how they did even a few years ago. With rapid technological advancements and shifting expectations, adaptability and forward-thinking mindset have become essential. This brings us to our next discussion, 404, Old School Leadership Not Found. Meet the new Tech-Driven Execs. In this session, we will hear from dynamic voices who are embracing these shifts, bringing new approaches to leadership, and confidently navigating this ever-changing landscape. Let's give a warm welcome to the session's moderator, MK Palmore, founder and principal advisor at Apogee Global RMS, and our panelists, Joan Sugerman, CEO of Gemini Worldwide, Dionne Mejer, founder of Revenue by Design, Chaya Mallavaram, founder and CEO of Spark Launch, James Rodgers, CEO of The Diversity Coach, and Jasmine Gonzalez-Hurtado, CEO of Advanced Connectivity. The stage is yours.
Have a seat. Good morning, everyone. I think that our MC set up this conversation really well. My name is MK Palmore. I'm the founder and principal advisor at an enterprise risk advisory firm called Apogee Global. I've been in the leadership discipline for the entirety of my career, which spans the United States Marine Corps, Federal Bureau of Investigation, 2 Fortune 500 companies, and now, again, consulting on my own. This panel, I think, will be interesting to you because I agree. Leadership, I think, has changed drastically over time, and although there are some principles, I think that you'll hear illuminated by the panelists here, I think that definitely because of the environment that we're in, because of the landscape, that it requires us to maybe lead in a different fashion, and those are the types of things that we're going to talk about on the panel. So we're going to start with introductions of the panelists. They're going to give a little bit about their background, and then we will get into this healthy discussion. Jim, why don't we start with you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. James Rodgers. I'm a former executive in the telecom industry, fast-track executive, but for the last 40 years, I have been a management consultant, executive coach, and executive educator. I run a little enterprise called the Diversity Coach. It is not DEI, just for the record. It is diversity management. It's about enterprise performance, recognizing the fact that the archetypes of humans are different.
Dionne.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dionne Mejer, founder of Revenue by Design. I've been in sales and tech for the last 25 years. I currently now work with leaders and organizations as a revenue therapist. So go-to-market advisor. So I work with teams and leaders to effectively, efficiently, and with soul make their revenue numbers.
Chaya.
So I'm Chaya Mallavaram. I'm the founder and CEO of Spark Launch, where we are building an AI-powered game-based learning platform for children with ADHD and also includes other neurodivergences such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, autism, because you see a lot of, they could overlap. And it came from a very deep personal journey, realizing that I myself, I'm neurodivergent and had to go through a lot of challenges. And when my son was diagnosed, and I realized a lot of it was because challenges that he was facing was because I was forcing him into a system that was outdated. And there's a deep need for this because the children, neurodivergent children, have a lot of untapped potential that is needed in this world today. They are the future innovators, they are the creative geniuses, and need that knowledge, which is denied today because the systems are not built for them. And so I had to step into this role to build the platform, and I'm very excited with what we are creating.
Thanks, Chaya. Joe?
Hi, I'm Joan Sugerman. I'm the founder and CEO of Gemini Worldwide, and we coach leaders globally in their what we call their transformation, on a state change from being in a position of power to a position of fulfilling on what may seem to be impossible, which many discovered to be seemingly impossible and actually causing extraordinary results. I love this work. I'm fully engaged, and my vision for the world is a world transformed, and so this is my raison d'etre. And I'm giving a keynote speech on Thursday at 9:45 on Vision Reimagined, which is part of the work that we do with executives. I'm just finishing up a 4-month conference with senior executives only on vision. So it's going to be quite in-depth and quite provocative. Thank you.
Outstanding. Jasmine?
Hi, my name is Jasmine, ex-CEO of Advanced Connectivity, and I am in my rebranding era, I would say, and I'm excited to be here. And yeah, perfect timing in the last year, going about restructuring and relearning my life and all the changes in tech as well. So this couldn't have come at a better moment, and I'm an advocate in human rights as well.
All right, outstanding. So as you can see, a well-versed panel, deeply experienced, and so we should have a good conversation here. Dionne, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
All right. Leaders have lots of responsibilities, ranging everything from vision, creating a strategy, and of course, teams are responsible for execution. Through the work that you've done in the space, what's the most common breakdown that you see between that creation of strategy and the actual execution on the ground?
Yeah. There's really two key components that break it down. And I'm going to set a little bit of context and share with you, and some of you might scratch your heads at this. I firmly believe as adults, we would fail kindergarten. You get it. And here's why. Because the teacher's going to hand you a piece of paper, and he or she is going to say, I want you to color everything that starts with the letter G in green. And you're going to go, capital G or lowercase g? Dark green, light green. Do I outline it first? Do I do press hard, press soft? And for all of you that are saying, I wouldn't do that, you're lying. Mm-hmm. So that being said, there are two things that are really, really at the core of leadership breakdown. And the panel earlier talked about it. Ambiguity, which leads to a lack of specificity, and self-awareness. And those two key components are the crux of all evil at the end of the day. So when I work with organizations, I coach them into going 3 questions deep, being specific, delete the must be able to work in an ambiguous environment. That is us as a leader and organization being lazy. 100%. If we cannot name it, we cannot tame it. We have to be specific. We must also know ourselves. I'm going to share with you, and I asked the panel for permission for the most part. I just came out with a book called Lead with Soul. Mm-hmm. And this book guides you to create your leadership methodology. Whether you get it or not, if I were to ask you, what are your top 3 values? And if I asked your team, if you're living out those values, would they say yes? And so I know there's so much depth on this panel that's going to talk about this more. I work with organizations and leaders in that regard to get specific. What are your values? What are your standards of excellence? Have those been communicated effectively to your team? I just spoke with a leader, and he says, my team was gone at 3:30 in the afternoon. And I said, do they know they're supposed to be there until 5 o'clock your time? Blank look. Because we're not being specific with our team. The last thing I'll leave you with is an example of specificity. My daughter is with me. She's going to be 17 in a couple weeks. And, you know, she's amazing and I love her to pieces. My son is equally amazing. What's important to me with my children, and one of my own standards of excellence, is being polite. Just be kind. The world is full of jerks. And how amazing that to be kind will allow us to stand out. Be kind, be polite. So as they were smaller, 4 years old, they had to ask to be excused from the table, put their dishes in the dishwasher, and then they may proceed with their evening. So, Mom, may I be excused? And I said, absolutely, your mouth needs to be empty. She chews, she swallows, shows me, yes, you may be excused. Fantastic. All right, Mom of the Year. My son, sweet baby Ray, you men in the room, holy bananas. Mom, can I be excused? Yeah, you're shaking your head, you know what's coming. And then I go, same thing, same exact words. And I say, yes, your mouth needs to be empty. Without missing a beat, he looks at me, spits his food into his hand, and puts it on his plate. My very first lesson in specificity. So that's the question, is if we are giving direction to our team, and how many times have we done that? We give direction to our team and they go off and she's not, yeah, you know what I mean. And they go and they do something, you're like, that's not what I meant. We as a leader have not been specific enough. Specificity and knowing ourselves are the things that we need to keep in mind. Thank you.
Right. Ambiguity bad, specificity good, right? Outstanding comments. Jasmine, I want to pivot a little bit and talk to you about some of the pressures I think that leaders feel in the environments that they're in, and essentially what goes into building that moment of pressure, and how do we think about building organizations that are resilient and still maintain accountability while dealing with crisis?
How do we maintain accountability?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a very, from experience, what I can tell you from the last year, how do you maintain that? Just being human, just being honest, being yourself, and just doing the best you can. So, yeah.
Okay. Joan, you've got some experience here in the leadership realm. This panel is really about identifying sort of those core things that I think will be evergreen through the ages, but leadership has still changed somewhat in terms of the types of folks that we're leading. And the question is really around whether or not folks who are adherent to a really old school style of leadership, whether or not they can transform. What do you think about that?
That's such a good question. It's a vast question. Well, we all have an operating system. Not a technology operating system. We all have a brain-generated, stored memory operating system. And a lot of the people who are in leadership positions are still operating in the past-based operating system, sadly enough, no matter how knowledgeable, how amazing, how great. And there actually is a way to put the old or not functional or not terribly effective operating system from the past on hold. For example, a command and control operating system, which is still fairly prevalent, to actually identify it, put it on hold, and create a new operating system. And that's what I do with executives. And it is fun, it's transformative, and it's powerful. I'll give you an example. You want to hear an example?
Yeah, let's hear it.
There's a CEO who I coached for 10 years, and also his executive team. And I was coaching his CEO, and he died in a plane crash. So I was called in an emergency because the COO was stepping up in this emergency situation to be CEO, and he had never done that. Well, what he had done, he'd been an excellent COO, and it was I specialize in high-tech companies. The company was a high-tech company. Most of the people were PhDs in technology. And I was dealing with someone who knew only from the past and he had a pass-based operating system. And his pass was, he grew up on the streets of Philadelphia and was the head of a gang. He was about 6'3", scary-looking guy, and then he was in the Marines, and he was a brilliant, brilliant technological leader, and he really didn't know any other way to operate except command and control and scare his employees and scare his leadership team. There were 7 of them. So I said, you know, your revenues are flat. He knew that. I didn't have to tell him that. But there's another way to operate. And he looked at me like with steely eyes. He was scary to me too. And I actually took a baseball bat to one of my sessions with him because he was so scary. It was supposed to be a joke. Anyway, he said to me, "You're not going to make me fluffy, are you?" I said, "No, I'm not going to make you fluffy. I'm going to actually support you in having your executive team, all 7 of them, and the rest of your company want to work with you after the CEO is gone." And a lot of them were ready to quit. He had to reinvent his whole leadership in his company. It was urgent. So I promised him I wouldn't make him fluffy. And what I did do was engage with him instead of blaming people and having them be wrong and diminishing people, to actually lift people up and not just come from a vision, but come from that they are extraordinary human beings and extraordinary leaders. That was a big step for him. And another was to be responsible for the way he grew up and being a command and control kind of leader who dominated and forced outcomes, and to be responsible for that. And he put responsibility on a card in his wallet and the definition of it. And he was really hungry to learn, and he did learn. And he learned to take responsibility for his mistakes, which was huge, huge, huge. And he became authentic and vulnerable and transparent and shared his weaknesses in front of his executive team. So I would coach him on the mornings before his executive team meeting every week. And he said, "Okay, Joan, this is what I have at stake. I really want to kill them all, but I'm not going to. And I'm going to go in there and open the kimono." I'm wearing this kimono-type jacket for the occasion. And I'm going to go and open the kimono, and I'm going to fess up to my weaknesses. And I said, that's going to do wonders. Well, it did do wonders. Revenue skyrocketed. They didn't quit. They wanted to work with him. And the revenues actually became 16% higher than when I started working with him. And the company sold for an enormous amount. So this is not a fluffy thing. It's a bottom line thing, and it's critical for modern day leadership.
All right, outstanding example, and certainly some of that resonates with me from my command and control experience leading in the Marines.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for being authentic.
Absolutely. Jim, let's get you into the conversation here. You run an executive academy specifically for technology executives. What are some of the key lessons that you see emerging from that experience that our audience might benefit from?
Yeah, first of all, let me give you some context. These students are the top of the line in technology in their companies. Most of my students come from the big companies, the big banks, Cisco, Oracle, all of these guys. And they have attained their level in their organization through excellence in technology. They've made it all the way up to VP or to managing director of those. And one of the first things that I tell them is, I'm going to teach you how to think. One of the first exercises I give them is ask them the question, MK, what does a senior executive leader do? And of course, they give me all the corporate speak and show me how smart they are in using all the problem language and AI this and AI that. And then I say, yeah, that's an elegant answer. It's wrong, but it's elegant. And then I go on to tell them what the answer is. The answer is nothing. They do nothing. And of course, it takes them a little while to understand the context of me saying that an executive leader does nothing. And it's the first introduction to what I really want to do is to teach them how to think. In our Executive Academy, we have a formula for teaching people how to think. How many of you all in here actually think? Good answer. Most of us think we do, and most of us don't. Most of us adopt the latest meme. How many of y'all used the word AI in a sentence in the last 2 days? Of course you have, because it's the current meme. Everybody wants to show how smart they are by saying AI this and AI that. But the question is, do you really know what it means? So the first step of thinking is define your terms. Be clear about what you're talking about. If I'm talking to Dionne about AI, I will begin by saying, when I say AI, I mean the thing that Alan Turing invented 70 years ago, not the thing that's being promoted now. The first part is define your term. The second part is to make it simple. You don't make it simple by just coming up with a catchphrase. You make it simple by working diligently over years, practicing and studying and practicing and studying until you can make it simple, until you understand it well enough to state it in a few terms. And the third part of thinking is, you'll like this one, don't be stupid. So what being stupid means is that you've forgotten what we were trying to do in the first place. So I'm going to be speaking at Technology Conference tomorrow, so I'm kind of in an AI mode. So one of the things I tell people is, if you don't know where it started, you certainly don't know where to pick up the conversation. You're just dropping into the middle of a conversation, declaring yourself the expert, and carrying down the meme rather than thinking through what really is going on here. So as executive leaders, these are people who are aspiring to be C-suite executives. As executive leaders, the first thing I have to tell them is the game changes when you move from VP to CEO. The name of the game is different. You will no longer be able to work your way up to the CEO role. You have to be invited up there. And the way you do that is to learn to be recognizable, to show off, to get known by the people. I tell them, it's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. That's what's going to get you to the top. And so you have to nurture that and be clear about that. The other thing I tell them is being an executive doesn't make you a leader. I was pleased to see, many of you know Brene Brown. She does a lot of work, and she comes out of academia, but she's been in probably as many executive suites as I have over my 40 years of doing this work. And she says, I've met a lot of executives, and I've never met a leader, because they haven't defined the term. The word leadership means that you're selling an idea, a concept of vision, in such a way that people willingly follow you. If you're going down a path and you look around, no one's following you, you're taking a stroll. You're not really leading. And so we have to understand that. And management, of course, is that one-on-one, day-to-day, face-to-face process of making sure everybody has what they need to do their best work. So when we start by defining our terms, it makes it simpler for people to do the right thing. So being an executive doesn't make you a leader. Being a leader doesn't require you to be an executive. And so those are the things that we try to point out to them in this program so that they can recondition their mind, because it requires a different perspective to be a leader than to be the number one technology guy in your firm. And so we have to make sure that they're prepared for that translation. And in today's time, a lot of people get away with calling themselves leader when they're not even close to being a leader.
Love it. Chaya, you specialize and are an entrepreneur right now in an area that accounts for the different types of personalities and how people show up within the work environment. What is it that struck you about this idea of leading people differently and maybe even teaching them differently that inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I was an individual contributor for most of my life, and I should say a lot of my ideas were very different, and the way I think is different, and that was never honored in a school system because schools are linear, and so that trauma of not being able to voice my difference, my unique way of thinking was there. And so what happened was it was stuck inside my body, which leads to a lot of frustration, But then I had my outlet. I'm also an artist, so I got it out. And actually, a lot of my lessons are through my painting, and where I learned to go with the flow and things like that. But then I saw this pattern across people. And then I also noticed that people on top were not actually problem solvers. They just took big titles and salaries and couldn't solve a single problem. A lot of simple problems were unresolved. And it always bothered me, why couldn't they see it? But I never really spoke because there were all these rules and I was an individual contributor. This was all my overthinking until I was given this mission through my meditation, and I said, I'm going to use every single power that I have within me, the untapped potential that I have with this single purpose to serve the community. And that, from a thought to where we have come here with a team, and even how I found my team was all through intuition, like the previous speaker said, just being alone and just truly believing in yourself to do good. Because remember, we are all here on this planet for a certain number of years, right? The average lifespan is somewhere in its 70s. And while we enjoy the planet, always remember to leave something meaningful behind, and so to create something that you love. And I had learned the creation process through my paintings, and so I said, I'm going to do this, and that's why that was my inspiration. And also, I would say for leaders to set that ground, that playground where people can show up authentically, and people always match your own vibration. So I would say, as leaders, we have to be vulnerable and bring our authenticity forward, because people will match that. And when they match, not only do people bring their challenges, but they also bring their strengths. And so that was my inspiration, because there's so much untapped potential within the organizations, and they might not speak up for various reasons.
So Chaya's, thank you. Chaya's response, I think, brings up an interesting question. Almost, I think everyone here is an entrepreneur. We all become entrepreneurs for a variety of reasons, but Chaya had indicated she was attempting to solve a problem, and she felt as though other leaders weren't, in fact, doing that. When I started my own business, the whole idea was I thought there was a community, the small to medium-sized businesses, that weren't being served with enterprise expertise when it comes to technology. And so that's the nexus behind the firm that I started. Jim, I want to start with you, and I'm going to ask each panelist the same question. What problem was it that you were trying to solve when you stood up your own leadership practice?
Well, this is going to sound haughty, but I thought I was smarter than everyone else. So it really kind of bothered me to be working for people who should have been working for me. So I just finally decided that...
I want to pause for a second. Probably everyone in this room has felt that, so go ahead.
So
That's authentic. That's very authentic.
I just decided that I was doing a lot of good inside the corporation and making good decisions, like you were talking about, Chaya. I released my own integrity and my ability to solve problems. And I said, rather than doing that for them, I'm going to do that for me. I decided while I was working for the corporation that I was self-employed. Right now, I've only got one client, and that's the company that I work for. I said, I want more clients, so I left so that I could share what I had learned in those 17 years with more people. And since then, I've worked with 350 executive teams.
Okay, outstanding. Jasmine, how would you answer that question? What problem are you trying to solve?
The problem that I was trying to solve was, how can I connect people, and when it comes to technology, keep them safe at the same time, and bridge that gap between communication in a level where it's authentic, not what you get everywhere you go or what everybody's used to. So that's how I started.
Okay. Joan?
Well, mine's both personal and visionary. The personal part is my father was a CEO, and I used to go to work with him, and I learned a whole lot. And I didn't even know how much I learned. And a lot of CEOs came to dinner, and I just soaked it in as a little kid. So it felt really natural to me to work with CEOs of companies and senior executive teams. I also work with non-CEOs. But it felt like I was fulfilling something very close to my dad. And it still does. And that warms my heart. So that was the personal reason. The professional reason is somehow I became totally committed to causing a transformation in the world. Whether it's my children or CEOs or colleagues or my husband or whoever, I really got committed to causing transformation in the world. And it is truly, authentically my passion. So that's what I do professionally. I also have a movie business. I do it there too. I do it everywhere.
We'll have to cover the movie business.
No, another time.
Dionne?
I had two reasons, like most people here. One was earlier, I went to market about 11 years ago. My children were significantly smaller, and I thought it was crazy. And I love what I do, and I get very, very focused. And I thought it was a little bananas that I would see them like 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. So I wanted the flexibility, which thankfully I've been able to have. And so it was really about the time management and flexibility with my family. And it was also really what you said, Jim, as far as I always built systems that made my team successful, because so many of the times leaders were busy leadering and not cascading it out and helping teams be successful, the applicability of this new thing that's coming out. So AI training, so team rolled out AI, and one of my clients right now, I said, that's fantastic. Does your team know how to use this new tool in their everyday life? Nope. Great. Let's roll out a workshop. And so it's all about the applicability. And so to your point, I wanted to be able to really give voice to the team and help them be successful, because most people show up every day wanting to be successful. And it's really frustrating to be an IC on the receiving end of, hey, you should just figure it out, don't you know? Well, what do I need you for? Right? To that point.
Yeah.
No offense, but you're not solving a problem.
Yep.
And that's not also, in their defense, sometimes the executive's role.
Yeah.
That's management's role.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I do what I do, is really to help teams be successful so they feel that achievement at the end of the day, because people genuinely want to succeed. So that's what I do. Why I do it.
Yeah, it strikes me that when we have conversations about leadership, that we're asking people to, one, be self-reflective,
100%.
recognize where they are, and to potentially change something about themselves. What's the hardest part? We'll start with you, Joan. What's the hardest part about that transformation? How do you actually get people to act and perform differently?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, the first place it has to start is with me. If I'm stuck, my clients are going to be stuck. If I'm not scaling, my clients aren't scaling, meaning I really take on everything that I coach people in, because I consider that I'm the lid. So it starts with me, and then I have some very resistant clients who are stuck in their past operating systems. And it really does take something to paint a picture of what a future might look like that is unrecognizable, and what is the predictable, almost certain future now to continue where you're operating. And when people really see how they're operating now and what is the predictable outcome in the next 5, 10, 20 years, they get really interested in a new kind of future. So that's the basis of doing the hard work and the intellectual effort and really causing a transformation. Because when they see that, they want it and they're willing to do the thinking.
Let me ask you to extend that a little bit, because one of the challenges that I can say I've experienced myself is that when you've been successful, oftentimes you think there are no problems to address. How do you get folks to identify that even though you may have been successful, that what you did at that level is not going to get you to the next level?
Well, I call that someone's winning formula, how they've succeeded, not only that they've succeeded, but how they've succeeded. But there's always a lid on that, and I've coached people who are extremely successful for 25 years, and they're always looking to expand. And why? Because they reinvent themselves, they reinvent their vision, they reinvent their goals. It's never a static system. So there's always a gap.
But that's got to be present, though, right?
Oh, yeah, they have to see the gap between where they are and now and and no matter how successful, and I've got some very successful people, and what could be a new future reinvented, because there's never a static system. You either kind of become a dead walking person as a CEO, or you really reinvent yourself on a continual basis.
Yeah. Jim, you actually brought this up in an earlier answer.
Yeah.
Sort of what got you here is not going to get you there. Talk a little bit about how you get the folks that you coach to recognize, one, that limitation's there, and then how do you get them to actually put into practice what you're offering?
So Joan said something's really important. Those of us in the executive coaching ranks, we don't coach for remediation. We coach winners. We coach people who are successful, but who want to be even more successful. I belong to a group called the 100 Coaches. The foundation of that is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who is a personal friend of mine, and he was the #1 executive coach for years over time. And one of the things that we talk about is the success of a coaching relationship has more to do with the client than it does to the coach. All of us are great at coaching. We've studied it. Yep. It's our natural state of being. It's just what we do in life. The successful ones is when we have a client who's ready, willing, and able to be coached. 100%. That's why we just finished a book now called Becoming Coachable. And the thing that's important is with people, particularly successful people, you have to point out to them that, you know how to do this, and you didn't do it this time. Why didn't you do it this time? So we're there to remind them a lot of times of what they already know, but for some reason, out of our humanity, they just don't do it. One of the processes we have is what we call daily questions. As much as I want to be the best that I can be, I always fall short unless MK calls me every day and say, Jim, did you do your best to be kind? Did you do your best to be a leader? Did you do your best to take care of your people? And I have to answer that every day, because the minute you don't ask me, I'm going to lapse back to natural. And that's human nature. So 100%. In order to be coached, you have to understand human nature and not cause people, like you said, Dionne, I'm not blaming you for being human. Nope. I'm just trying to here to be supporting you in your humanity so you can be the best you possibly can be.
Amen to that.
Yeah, good stuff. Dionne, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I love what you said, right? And I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown. And I think we have to understand our own humanity. And I know for a long time I would react to something and I would get down on myself and I would go down that shame spiral. And I mean, through my own work too, like Joan said, is I can't coach if I'm not able to coach myself, right? Mm-hmm. So the mirror I hold up to my clients is the exact same mirror I hold up to myself. Am I being the best I can every day? Am I living out my values? Can I even name my values? And so I love everything this panel is talking about. The work I do, again, we're diving into that applicability. We're diving into that. And so that's the leadership methodology. And for a long time, I'd have leaders coming to me saying, my team needs coaching. They're doing it wrong. And I'm like, oh, what about you? Oh, no, I'm good. Mm-hmm. And so to Joan's point, what you were saying too is, okay. And I would always do every workshop, and I'd be like, let me give you a leadership facilitation guide. And I would coach them into how to coach their teams and their new skills they just had. It's like sending your puppy away to school. You cannot train your puppy or lead your puppy after the puppy has gone to school if you don't know what the puppy knows. So it was always about, can you actually lead this very high functioning team now? Because if you give them training and they skyrocket and you're still you're leading but not doing anything that you need to be doing, you're gonna fail. And nobody wants that. So I love everything you, yeah.
Let me just add one thing to what you just said. Martin King said, you can't teach what you don't know.
Amen.
And you can't lead where you won't go.
100%.
Great.
Yeah, great saying.
Can I say one quick thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been coaching some of my, they are all CEOs. One is head of business development of a big corporation. And I've been coaching a whole team for about 25 years. Now, that sounds crazy, but it addresses the same thing.
100%.
They're not remedial. In fact, they're amazingly successful. And they keep seeing that they can go deeper, they can go wider, they can make a bigger difference. They can even go through some things we've done before and see new things, because that is the nature of human beings. When you want to be alive and vibrant and relevant and future-based instead of past-based, and again, kind of die on the vine.
All right, I'm going to give you guys each a cleanup question, and this cleanup question is really around what you want folks to walk away with from this particular session. What's your high-level banner leadership item that you want folks to be thinking about, maybe even ruminating on when they walk away from this? Jasmine, I'll let you start.
Oh, perfect. So if you guys can walk away with something today, it would be leadership today isn't about control. It's about self-awareness, accountability, and building people. Also, it's my first time sitting in a panel, so I just have to throw that out there. If you guys can just go out there, leadership is moving beyond command and control. It's about being self-aware and taking accountability. And when it comes to technology, serving people and building real transformation.
Okay, Joan.
First of all, your question's great. I'd like you to take away that anything is transformable. Whatever you may be dealing with, whether it's work, personal, physical, whatever it might be, anything is transformable. And that's proven already to be possible. It's not the usual view, and I really do say that with conviction, commitment, and evidence. So really, anything's transformable. You're never stuck, period.
Chaya.
Yeah. I love the word transformation, and as we all desire transformation in the world, we should own up to inner transformation. Only when we are able to transform within ourselves, the world around us will, again, match up to it. So I would say just be open-minded. Being open-minded is the #1 thing for transformation. And also, I wrote down that all areas of our life are interconnected. So if you expect something magical to happen in the work, maybe the answers are in working with your relationship with your child or relationship with your best friend. So because every area is interconnected. So just be open to growing and evolving as a human being before becoming a leader. And that's why I think I had to do a lot of my own inner work before stepping into a leadership role with confidence.
Okay, outstanding. Dionne?
I think what I would leave everybody with is the same question I ask myself, which is, how effective is my leadership methodology, which presupposes we have one?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I would want you to leave with the understanding that the word leadership has a meaning. We all like to be called leaders. Even when we're in a role that's a manager's role, we want to be called leader. But if you want to be called leader, lead. We are currently over-indexed on the word leadership, but we're not over-indexed on the actual execution of leadership. So if y'all want to be leaders, learn what it means and then do that.
So I've been leading for 30 plus years as a professional. What I learned early on was about mission accomplishment and taking care of people. And what I've evolved into is a leader that's focused on people as the whole entirety of the leadership journey. And I say that to mean this: if you focus in on pouring into your people, they will eventually accomplish the mission that you have set before you. It's always about the people. Remember that. Thank this panel. How about a round of applause for the panel?
Great.
Thanks for your time. I'll see you guys in the conference.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.